Joining us now is author and journalist TRICIA Romano. Hello, TRICIA.
Hi, nice to meet
Hi.
you.
You too. So this is Coast to Coast. Are you in Seattle today?
I am in Seattle today.
Lovely. I heard that, and how long have you lived there? How long have you been out in Seattle?
I have been back since 2011, amazingly.
And I see a plant near you. I know I just met a good friend of mine the other day, and they had lived in Seattle for a really long time. And what they loved best about it was the fact that most of the time people just bundle up and they live outdoors. Do you find that a refreshing part of your journey too, after coming from the concrete jungle of New York?
I am not one of those people.
You're not? So you're happily indoors? Is that what you're telling me?
I like it out. I like the summer, but right now, it's always drizzly and rainy, and I'm not one of those hiker people. I go
Gotcha.
on strolls, and I will do a nice walk through the meadow, but I will not go hiking.
And what about the mist? I heard that there's like always just like a soft mist, like you're walking through like
Oh
a
yeah.
fan that where the water, is that true? Little misty?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
always, yeah. It's funny, before I came on, I did my hair and then I had to go run an errand and I came back and it was sunny and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be great." And then it started to rain and I was like, "Oh no, I have to do everything over."
Now, Seattle, I was sharing with our mutual friend, we have a mutual friend named Jessica. My son got engaged at the very top, like there's a gigantic like Ferris wheel or something in Seattle. And the funniest thing is
hmm
Andrew got engaged there, but he's like afraid of heights. So I thought that that was like interesting too, that Seattle has, I think, like a mystical spell about it, where it's just, it's unique to itself. And so maybe
It
you
is
feel the
very
same way.
different than yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Twilight books and the series are, I think, based out in Washington, like near the coast, and
Yes.
that's part of the dreaminess about it. And I don't know, it's its own thing because it's so far away. I think people forget that we exist sometimes. Like I think they think we're like in Alaska or which is even further away. But yeah,
Now,
it's
and
a
you've
very
brought some
different place.
awareness. You've brought some awareness in your uncensored book, all about the Village Voice, because truly, you made your bread and butter on the pavement here of New York. I want to know all about this new book for you.
Well, I have been working on it for the last 5 years, and I it's called The Freaks Came Out to Write, which is a title that's a play on a Houdini track called The Freaks Came Out at Night. Um, and I've been interviewing past and present, mostly past, writers and editors and photographers and artists that worked at The Voice. And over the course of 5 years, I have put together a narrative with all of their interviews, basically, and tried to cover the beginning of the paper from the 50s until now.
What do you find was so unique about that? What made the Village Voice the Village Voice?
Well, you have to realize in 1955, the idea of first person journalism was completely foreign. Nobody did that. The New York Times was very objective, very straightforward, um, and they were covering mainstream stuff. They were covering, you know, the opera, Broadway shows. They weren't covering what was at street level and what was happening before it became mainstream. And that was the main thing that The Voice was doing, for most of its life, at least on the cultural side of things. And then with the politics, they were covering um, politics and news in a way that other papers were not.
Were there any times, and I apologize because I didn't get to read your book quite yet, but I do know a little bit about it. But were there any times when you're working at the Village Voice that you just kind of wanted to hide under your desk? Like, were there any? It seems to me like it was like this crazy vortex of like wildness, you know?
I mean, it was wild, but I loved it. We used to have a smoking room, you can imagine. And um, I might be dating myself there, but the smoking room was a hilarious thing where we would all sit in there, and whether or not you smoked, you would just hang out and like do your work in there, like on the proofs. And we used to have this game, like, who's normal in this building? Is there a single normal person in this building? And we'd be like, no, there's not a single normal person in this
No
building.
single normal
Everyone
person.
was unique, and everyone was a character, and that was super fun, inspiring, and eye-opening to the way you could be in the world that was different than what you might have um, thought you could be before.
Did you keep your clippings? Like anytime like
Hmm?
you would see like your byline, did you keep your own clippings? Did you like put them in a scrapbook or anything? Or like how did you
I mean,
curate some of your own journey?
I do have some of those things tucked away, and thankfully, because a lot of it's not online anymore, and or even at all. So it was something that I would try and obsessively keep. And I do have, I think, most of it down in my basement somewhere.
What would you like the reader to glean from your book? Like who's it written for? Like what would somebody be in store for if they picked it up?
I mean, I think it's really for the fans of the paper who grew up reading it. I know so many people um, read it from afar. They read it in Ohio or, California. And, for a really long time, it was a place where it was the only place where you could learn about new music and or new underground film. And I think you can read it for different angles. Like you can read it if you're a film fanatic or a political fanatic or just an old New Yorker who, you know, wants to relive the glory days, basically. And it's nostalgic without being, I think, rose colored, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And when you say the term freak, what does that encompass for you?
I think, that was a way to sort of explain that people were unconventional that worked there. They were unconventional in a number of ways. They were unconventional in, either their sexuality or their lifestyle or what they reported on, how they wrote, how they dressed. I mean, one of our fashion writer was Lynn Yeager, and I'm not sure if you are familiar with Lynn Yeager. She's very big now. She's at Vogue, but she is one of the most unusual people you'll ever see on the planet. And that's what the voice was for.
I am excited. I know also that you are going to be going on a book tour. You're doing cities and things like that, and I believe you're coming to New York. Is that correct?
I am. I'm doing an event at McNally Jackson Seaport, and on the 28th, and on March 5th, I'm doing Greenlight Books, and oh yeah, Long Island. We're coming to Long Island on March 1st at next chapter.
Lovely. When you do these book signings, are there a lot of the people that you used to work with and people that used to read the Village Voice that are coming out to like meet you? Are you excited by that?
Yes, I think a bunch of my former colleagues are coming out to different events, and the people that I interviewed. So I'm very excited to see them all again.
And is there a particular chapter that you're like, you know what, this was a little really out there, even for the Village Voice, but that you included it? Are there like nuggets of like serendipitous goodness?
I would say the chapter that probably most exemplifies that is the chapter about the performance artist Karen Finley and the battle between the front of the book newsmen and the back of the book culture writers, and how they were fighting over that story and whether or not it deserved to be the cover. And I think a lot of the issues that are discussed in that chapter are still really relevant.
Well, as someone that identifies myself somewhat as a freak, or like a unicorn, or like a little out of the box most of my days.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you, thank you, Tricia. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to you coming back. Like, I know that you've had other things that you've written, and you're a well-accomplished journalist, and I thank you for spending some time with us today. I really, truly do.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me. Thank you for
You're
having me.
welcome. You're welcome. Be well. Happy journeys to you, Tricia.